Big Brain says, and they would only push further right a few more months, and they're going to say African Americans aren't true Americans and need to be deported. Oh, actually, they're already saying it. I don't know if you guys watched Sheena Warrior Princess, Sina. Sorry, in Spanish we said Sheena, and I know that in English it's Sina with Lucy Lawless. Let me see. Let me see if I can find that tweet. Because like in Sina, one of the characters was Hercules, right? Hercules played by Kevin Sorbo. Okay, so this is Kevin Sorbo, who you can't see this. Hold on. Better. So this is like Kevin Sorbo, who played Hercules in Sina Warrior Princess, which is an awesome show, and everyone should watch it. I agree with Oadara. And so he had this like comment, this intervention in the whole H-1B visa debacle, Civil War thing, saying that the H-1B visa debate boils down to this: for years, our young people have been told to work hard, to go to school, and compete on merit. They then see jobs go to people brought in from overseas. Hold on. The alienation grows when the people they supported seemingly tell them to sit down and shut up while simultaneously calling for unity. The visas need a fix, that goes without saying. Americans also need a chance. This shouldn't be controversial. And then someone comments on his like tweet. This is like, this has to stop, right? This is 6% of elite jobs are going to white males in America. And it is DEI, but for all Americans only. I find this like wild. Because I guess the underlying point of this is it's fine, like it's fine if you prioritize non-meritocratic results for quote unquote real Americans. And by real Americans, of course, they mean white people, right? Because DEI is for people of color. So people of color vis-a-vis white people cannot have DEI. But white people vis-a-vis foreigners, they should get DEI, like special treatment, and like not even, I mean, of course DEI it's not special treatment, but like what they would call special treatment for others. And so they want like these like exclusive quotas for quote unquote real Americans, right? So I thought that was amazing because they actually sort of did say it. They did go there, right? They did say what, like Big Brain was saying, a few more months and they're going to say African Americans aren't true Americans and need to be deported. Well, they are saying that African Americans are not real Americans, and so when you do DEI for them, it's unfair on the real Americans, who are the ones who need the DEI. You know, they need the quotas, they need the special treatment, the affirmative action, because that's the true American, right? I found that mind blowing. I found that incredible. Brickbrain says, and MAGA MAGA right always needs a villain. If they somehow deport 13 million people, they would then go after legal immigrants and then minority citizens and then start making a division among white people. Well, that's what happened in the UK, right? So in the UK, we had Brexit. Right? So Brexit was supposed to, get rid of all the undesired immigrants. And of course, the Brexit campaign, had images for deporting immigrants that they all looked like from the global south, people of color. But of course, the immigrants that came through Brexit were normally Romanian, Polish immigrants. And a lot of French people, a lot of like Irish people, a lot of people from like Northern Europe, right? And when Brexit happened, a lot of those people just left. What used to happen is they would come to the UK, work for a few months, return to Europe, to continental Europe, and that's how supply was met, like working supply was met. When Brexit happened, all of that, like, I don't know, revolving door workforce left en masse, never came back. So all of a sudden there was a huge chunk, a huge hole in workforce. So of course they had to bring in immigrants from the global south. So these people that wanted less global south immigrants ended up with more global south immigrants because of their anti-immigration laws. And so now they are trying to get rid of the global south immigrants by restricting school visas, like education visas, when they do that, now a lot of students are not choosing the UK to study. The university sector is in crisis. There's a lot of universities closing entire departments. The University of Kent has closed its history department. I think it was the history department. I know like other universities are having a lot of trouble, like Oxford Brookes and so on. They're all having trouble, squaring the finances. Um, and yet they're still not happy because they're still like now the small boats. Now you need to stop the boats. So it's never enough. You always need to get rid of someone else because it's always someone else's fault. Doesn't matter how many different kinds of immigrants you attack, because at the end of the day, it's not really the immigrants' fault that there's a squeeze on living conditions for everyday British people, including immigrants. People of color and immigrants are suffering the same squeeze in cost of living as white Brits. But the reason that they keep on attacking and they keep going after different kinds of immigrants is because they don't realize the real problem is the lobbying, the greed in the corporations. Like Boeing planes keep falling from the sky for a reason, right? Because companies have discovered that they can jack up prices, lower quality as much as they can, and produce marginal revenues for their short-term investors, while at the same time lobbying Congress to make sure that this never changes. And so we're filled with subscriptions. We are filled with low quality products. Everything's falling to pieces. When you buy property in the UK and it's a new build, it falls to pieces because everything is done with the lowest quality possible without any regulation. And so I feel like it's the right wing now fighting with Elon Musk, starting to discover, for the wrong reasons, for xenophobic reasons, but starting to discover, oh, actually, part of the problem is the billionaires. And I feel that's an opportunity for the left to take, as in they can engage in this language of, yeah, the billionaires might be the problem, man. Maybe it's not the immigrants, but let's see where this develops, right? It's really interesting to see this like civil war, because for the completely wrong reasons they have arrived at the adequate conclusion that these companies are part of the problem, right? That Tesla and like I don't know Elon Musk are part of the problem because they don't have quote unquote the interest of the average person at heart. Of course they think that means, oh, they want to bring immigrants. That's the wrong explanation. But at least now they're not, their alliance is shattered. The trust between the MAGA working class white American and the tech bro billionaire is shattered. Uh, Magic Cross says they're going after legal immigrants, people pretending to care so hard about American white worker jobs wouldn't say a word when the same white workers are getting underpaid, exploited, mistreated, and fired without reason by rich billionaires. If you point that out, then it's socialism. So, but I found out one thing that's very interesting. So when I'm usually in a Uber, say, or in a cab or something, and I have in front of me, like the driver, is someone who is very anti-immigrant, very xenophobic. I'm the kind of person that likes trying to get where that comes from. So I engage, I talk. Right. Not everyone likes it. I don't recommend it for everyone. In the worst case scenario that I had in my life, I was doing that. I was talking to a guy uh, with a couple of friends in a taxi in Peru, not an Uber, like a regular street cab, completely unregulated in Peru. And the guy, the guy was talking about how he was like anti-immigrant and everything. And at some point, he opened up his glove compartment, pulled up a gun, and said, "And I'm ready in case I need to use this." And then stayed with the gun in his hand. And we were then like, "Oh crap! We should not be talking with this guy about politics. He's gonna kill us all." Uh, but in terms of like normal Uber drivers, I like to talk about politics and understand their viewpoints. And one thing that I've learned is that when you are in this like awkward conversation with someone telling you, oh, it's the immigrants and like, I don't know, the people that come here and steal the jobs, the easy way out of that uncomfortable situation is talking about working conditions. It's talking about not having enough money, salaries being too low, and the government working for big corporations and not for the small entrepreneur or the average worker. Immediately the conversation will shift to absolute agreement, because what these people are told consistently is there's a cake, and that cake has limited capacity to feed people, and if you bring foreigners, they eat the cake more, and so you are left with less, and therefore you should hate the immigrant for your squeeze, for your economic squeeze. Which of course is not true, because when immigrants come, they usually work, so contribute to the economy, so they grow the cake. And I'm not an economist, so I don't want to talk about this too much, but it is my anecdotal evidence that whenever I'm in a situation where a taxi driver is talking about xenophobic things with me, I immediately shift the conversation to the economy doesn't work, billionaires are assholes, and working conditions and salaries are too low. This is an unfair system, and immediately we agree on everything. So there's something there. It is anecdotal, but there's some anecdotal evidence there that things are the underlying factor of all this. Oh, Cheese Steve, thanks for resubbing. You get the special, Kevin. Like the underlying thing about this xenophobia is in Marxist terms, and I'm not a Marxist, but in Marxist terms, it's the material conditions that are driving the xenophobia. It's an easy explanation that someone's told them you should hate the immigrant for the lack of improvement in your material conditions. So I find that very interesting. Magic Carl says, yeah, I mean, worker pay and labor rights in general are going to hell. Big Brain says, I'm in India and I keep getting spammed 24/7 with studying UK ads. They're using the Premier League as an argument in the ads to study in the UK. All I need to do is watch 10 minutes of UK Parliament to make up my mind. So you can, Big Brain, but the problem is that you cannot bring family with you. So this big cohort of students where some people came with their families, some people came with their partner, and some people came single has been reduced to some people come single. And that's it. You cannot bring family members with you. So a lot of people that were going to come to the UK are no longer coming. Brexit said, Odara says, Brexit completely destroyed the UK. I used to travel there before Brexit, and then after Brexit passed, I didn't go there for like 5 years. And then when I went there last year, and you could tell the complete deterioration caused by Brexit. Not just by Brexit, by Tory governments as well, and like austerity. There's a lot of homeless people now in London that didn't used to be. Decimo B, hola everyone. Hi, how are you? Welcome today. Welcome to the stream. Magic Carl says, I've been living here. Oh, cool. I've been living here. A lot of places closed and are understaffed, and prices went up insanely. Prices have gone up a lot in London. I used to go to a restaurant that used to serve a pasta with tomato sauce for £6.50. Now it's something about 12, 13 pounds. When I arrived here, the half pint of milk was 40p, like 40 cents. Now it's about £1, so it's normalized at double the price. Cost of living has increased exponentially here. It's insane. Odara says MAGA wasn't so bossed with punching. If MAGA wasn't so bossed with punching down, they'd realize that their lives suck because the guy above them keeps them down. But they are too filled with hate to realize that. So I acknowledge that a lot of people in the far right are just plain racists. Absolutely 100%. They're plain racists. But then there are also people that are in the other side of the spectrum where they're just looking for an explanation to why they are worse off. And I think that's the people that you need to like talk to. There's a really interesting British channel called Jimmy the Giant. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a guy who used to be in the far right. And now he's a moderate progressive, and it is very interesting how he describes how he got off the far right wagon. That we could like if I plug in my headset, we could watch a little bit of his video. It's quite interesting because it's not just he says like I never considered myself a racist while I was in the far right. He says that they got to him through the language of culture. Like, it's not that you hate, brown people. It's that you think that people that come from the global south don't have the Protestant ethics, and so they are less advanced. And so it's better if they embrace Westernness as an ideology to develop themselves, which is why this Magdeburg attacker is so catastrophic for the far right, and why they stopped talking about him entirely. Like, no one is talking about him anymore. Why? Because he's a guy who left Islam and embraced Westernness, and then got frustrated when he realized that embracing Westernness to the degree that he did made him a fascist. And not everyone was a fascist with him. A lot of people were just like liberal or socialist or progressive or center right or whatever, just not a fascist. And he got really angry at that and killed people because of it. Because he thought like, oh no, you need to be as fascist as I am. You need to hate Islam as much as I do, and so you need to protect people that are fleeing Islam, that are leaving Islam. And he says like, no, wait a minute, that's not what that is not what's happening in the real world. In the real world, you are still discriminating against Saudis, even when they are former Muslims. You're still discriminating against them. So you sold me a lie. I was told the narrative that if I converted to Westernness, I would be treated as an equal, and I am not. And because of that, you are too tolerant of Islam, the thing that I left behind, and so I'm going to kill you for Islamizing Europe, for trying to Islamize Europe. And so it's a really crazy ideology, but it is the result of ultra embracing, super ultra Westernness leading to fascism. And so this is catastrophic for the idea that no, what makes you lesser, quote unquote, according to the far right, is culture. Your culture is inferior. This is why language that treads the narrative of civilization, of culture, of development is so dangerous, because it's a stand-in, is a placeholder for good old racism. Magic of Carl says most of MAGA want to believe they are better and special, so that it's why they look to blame others. I mean, yes, but at the same time, I do think that there's a lot of people in that MAGA train that are there mostly because they get a sense of belonging out of the collective identity, and they are looking for a simple explanation to why things are so messed up. And it's easier to say, oh, it's because of the immigrants, than to say, oh, there's a complex explanation that has to do with material conditions and like with like how the economy works and how lobbies work. Like, it's simpler to just say it's the immigrants. But it doesn't matter how many immigrants you get rid of. You got rid of the Brexit immigrants. You're trying to get rid of the students. You're trying to get rid of like the asylum seekers. You keep trying to get rid of everyone, and yet there's always more immigrants to blame because immigrants are not the problem. So Adara says they live under the delusion that one day they too will be the billionaires, which is sad and pathetic because what they really want is to lord over other people. It's a mindset I've never understood. It's quite incredible because, white working people have more in common with asylum seekers than with billionaires. Their struggles are more relatable to asylum seekers coming in through small boats than to billionaires. They are closer to being a refugee than they are to be a billionaire. That lack of class solidarity to me is amazing, and it does have to do with like racism for sure. And Labour is also so bad at politics, says Big Brain. 6 months in government and they're almost as unpopular as the Tories were after 11 years in government. Well, because they are embracing the same policies as the Tories. Like, this is something that that's not the expression, grinds my gears, right? How left-wing parties have sort of like fallen prey to the how do you call this, the lobby money, right? It's they also need these like large corporations to, and take this with a grain of salt. I'm not a political scientist. I'm not an elections expert, so take this as my opinion as a everyday citizen, not as an academic or anything like that. I feel like left-wing parties are so interested in being able to play the funding machine, the funding game, that they are forgetting about what makes them left in the first place. So if you're pandering to funders, if you're pandering to people that donate money so that you can have campaigns, and you're willing to then just squeeze out left-wing policies, what really differentiates you from the right, other than it's a milder version of right-wing politics? I think it's been long enough, and we haven't seen a lot of change so far. Like, sure, tomorrow private schools are going to be taxed with VAT, so that they can hire more teachers for public schools, which I think is good. But I mean, there's still no, to my knowledge, homes are not being built en masse yet. There's nothing being done over cost of living. I don't know. The property ladder is still impossible for anyone under the age of 40. Um, it's really bad, in my opinion. Odara says, I hate austerity and the idea that governments um, should make wait, I lost it. Should make money. The government should provide services to its people and maintain society, not a portfolio. I think. I think so. My thing with this is, I think people need safety nets and people need the state to survive, particularly poor people. So there are some services that should be provided by the government, definitely 100%, like healthcare, education, security. These are things that the government needs to provide. Then you get into like a more complicated discussion about whether the government is able to engage in market-oriented stuff. Like, for example, having in Peru, we used to have a toilet paper company that was owned by the state. We had a milk company that was owned by the state, and with very bad results. So, and on the other side of the spectrum, you have like Singapore Airlines, which is like publicly owned and an amazing airline, right? So I think on that discussion, there's more flexibility as to whether um, lucrative commercial activity by the state can work in a specific setting, in a specific political realm. Um, and then there's the public service aspect, like healthcare, like I don't know, like security, like the police force, like or you know education, universities, schools. All of that needs to be provided by the state. And without without any lucrative goal. That's what at the very least the state should do it. If you want to opt out and go to your private school, okay, whatever, just pay your VAT, right? um, but yeah, I do agree. I do tend to agree with that. Public services should be public.